Hello, 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 and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you very much for being here. Today, we have Lacy from Canada. So I am excited about this. Lacy came down to visit with the sell by marketing class that Doug has going on. And so I've had a busy week of guests. So that's why you're seeing so many guest podcasts. But if you guys are not aware, I have co-authored a book with Winnie Lau in Canada, the Farming Without the Bank Canadian version. It's a little bit different than the US version because things work a little differently in Canada. Winnie is not here because she's got some family stuff going on and was not able to make it. But we are graced with Lacy.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me. It's like all surreal, like finally getting to see your new podcast studio and be here to record and meet with Doug and Amber and the sell by attendees. So yeah, I'm super excited.
I know. It's been fun to have you because we get to see each other at Think Tank, but we don't ever get like alone time.
Yeah.
So, so it's been fun.
Good.
Yeah. So Lacy, tell us a little bit, because I think this is important, that people want to know, do you know anything about farming and ranching? So can you just share a little bit about your background in agriculture?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Texas, and I grew up on...
Go USA!
Yeah, so I am a dual citizen, and I'm very proud of that. I grew up on about 100 acres. My dad was a calf roper. My mom was into horses. My dad actually used to hunt off of his horses, so like hunt deer and shoot. So I grew up on the back of a horse, just not farming or ranching. There was a period of time where my dad had cattle. I was probably like 10 to 12 years old maybe. And every time my dad was at his real job, he was a first responder. So he was a firefighter for the city of Houston for 28 years. So when he was doing his 24-hour shift, I think that's when the cows always got out. So I was always his right-hand man per se, like feeding the cows and helping with everything, branding. I remember getting left behind at 2 different brandings because I just was so independent and, just easily adaptable to whatever. So I moved to Canada in 2004, actually, when I married my husband, who was a rodeo cowboy. Reed was a bareback rider for a lot of years. And we lived on an acreage too. I brought my horses, brought my dogs, continued to barrel race and do things. I did a little bit of roping. But it wasn't until 2015 where we needed a change for our family. We had 2 young boys. Reed was a welder in the oil field. His rodeo career had came to an end. He chose to retire, and we were like, okay, we need a next step. So Reed comes from his mom's side of the family. The ranch has been in the family since 1910.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So we always dreamed, and we had a vision board with a log house and a pasture of black cows. So I know you love white cows, but we love black cows. So we always had this dream. And what we ended up doing was we sold everything. We sold our acreage. We took a job as a hired family on a ranch, and we bought some of our own cows. So that was our first step to really doing this ourselves. And so that was 2015. And then 2018, we partnered with one of the uncles on the original family ranch. So we purchased more land, brought our cattle, and really kind of the rest is kind of history per se, because he wanted help and he knew we wanted to be in that industry. And so we purchased land with him. We mostly run yearlings. We still have a few bred cows, but we mostly run a yearling operation with Uncle Brad. And his wife also happens to be from Texas. So we just have always had such a cool connection with them. So we live right beside them where Grandma Lizzie originally homesteaded in 1910. So she was from Michigan, actually, and she immigrated to Canada with her family. She was a widow and had a 2-year-old daughter. So she homesteaded the original 10 acres right where we live. And then she ended up, of course, marrying the neighbor, Jack Pearson, and the story, and the ranch is still in the family. So that's my background with getting into ranching is more with Reed's family. And I always knew, like, when I would go to Brad and Charlotte's, like, that just always felt like home. And so it only makes sense that we ended up being there and working with them. And so my role on the ranch, I like to do the fun jobs. So if the cows need moved and I get to ride my horse, that I'm all for it. Reed and Brad are mostly the brains behind the business and the hard, physical labor. And I come in and fill in where it's needed, or I do feed cows when, when Reed is away. So that's kind of my history, and just being there, a steward of the land, and like loving the lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. So, and you got 3 kids.
3 kids, yes.
So 2 boys and a girl.
2 boys and a girl.
I got to overhear your conversation with your daughter last night, who is 9 going on 50. And so
she is. Yeah.
She's kind of like you. She's let's just take her along, and she'll help fix fence, and she'll ride, and she'll do whatever. She's
like Reed's right-hand gal, I say. She's always up for trucking if they're going to get something. She has been fencing and working right alongside Reed and Uncle Brad, since we moved down there, driving the side-by-side for them, doing different things. Even last year, I was away for some reason. She was home with Reed, and we have this amazing little horse for her. And she went out and checked yearlings for Reed and Brad and came back and said, there's a fuzzy-eared calf who lost his tag, but he has a swollen leg and he's limping. And sure enough, like, he's red. He's, this is what he looks like. And so she says she's taking over. I mean, we'll see. Like, she's 9, right?
Yeah, but she's kind of taking great grandma's spot.
Yeah, she's got
great grandma's spot.
Yeah, Grandma Lizzie. Like, she's got an eye for it, and she truly loves it. Yeah. And that is what, like, sometimes our time's tough living that lifestyle. Yes, market volatility, like what's going to happen. A few years ago in calving, after we moved them to the parapasture, calves started getting sick. And then I started going like, oh my gosh, like, what if every single one gets sick? And then,
which is not super helpful.
No, it's not. And so, living that life and being in that business isn't always easy, but it's worth it.
Mm-hmm. It is, because the kids, even the boys, are involved, but
yes,
your daughter loves it.
Yeah, our boys are involved, like, with some physical labor stuff. They have a passion of, our oldest son, Zane, he has a passion for hunting, and he has since he was big enough to shoot a gopher. And he has spent 4 summers working as a wrangler for a hunting guide outfit in northern BC. And so his passion is really that. And will he come back? Probably not. The middle boy, I don't really know what direction he's going to go in, because he's worked as a wrangler as well, and he likes it. He really loves his hockey. So we'll see.
Maybe you'll have a professional hockey player out of the deal.
I don't think so, but I mean, I would be okay with that. I would go watch.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is nice to know, though, that Winnie obviously is amazing, but doesn't have any kind of farm background. And so you get the best of both worlds, really. You get the Winnie who understands it, doesn't live it, but understands it, and the infinite banking and all that kind of stuff. And so you guys work really good together as a pair.
Yeah, I always say, like, I have the best of both worlds, because I'm living on the ranch. That's what Rita's doing. I'm active. But Winnie has almost 16 years of experience practicing and being an infinite banking advisor. And you can't replace that, like, those years of experience. So she does try really hard to understand. Like, we'll have like, okay, Lacy, what does this mean? This person said this. What does that mean? And she really does try hard.
Yes.
And she,
hence why I co-authored the book with her.
Yes. And even though she's a city girl, she's raised in the city, her calling is to be a country girl. Like, she really does love the outdoors. And
Winnie will live outdoors longer than I will.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. Like,
she loves that life. Yes. And she loves the calm and all that kind of stuff. So it is nice that you guys are both working with the farmers up there. What are the differences? A lot of people ask, I get a lot of questions about, can we do this in Canada? And a lot of people don't know that you guys have a book And so what are the differences between, and maybe we'll just compare them because I don't even know what they are. I probably should know what they are, but I stay in my lane. And so what are the differences between the US and Canada? Like what the modified endowment contract piece in Canada works a little differently. So when you take a loan in the States, you can take that loan and it does not qualify as income. Nothing is reported. Like it's super, super easy.
Correct.
What happens in Canada when you take a loan?
So when you take a loan, every policy has, and I'm not super familiar with the US yet as well, but your policy has what's called an adjusted cost basis. And when your policy is brand new, that adjusted cost basis is like, let's just say really high. And then as your policy ages, it grinds down. Eventually, it will grind down to zero, and it takes years to do that. If your ACB, as we call it, is zero and you take a loan, then that amount of your loan becomes taxable income.
Okay.
So it's something that we as advisors in our team keep an eye on for clients. I've been with Winnie for almost 6 years, and I've only seen one time where a client received a T5 slip, they called it, and it was for like $200. So they had $230 of taxable income or something from their loan.
But then when they pay the loan back, that gets reimbursed, I understand?
Yes, it reverses it. So I can call up the insurance company and say, okay, my client has a policy loan balance of XYZ. How much do they need to pay back by December 31st in order to prevent
any taxation
on it? And it's very easy. It takes focus and dedication from our team. And we try to coach our clients with that too. Like, hey, stay in tune because we can't care about your money more than you do. And so stay in tune with, hey, what is your loan balance? Let's set a calendar reminder for October 1st that says, hey, let's make a loan repayment. If you're not already making loan repayments regularly, let's set a reminder and say, okay, check in with Lacey and Winnie's team and see what.
But the loan payment flexibility, is the loan as flexible as the US? They don't care if you make a loan payment. They don't care if you make interest. They're not tracking any of that?
They're not tracking it. Yeah. So
it's truly up. It's the same as here. It's you being the banker.
Yes.
If you're going to start a policy, you need to make sure that you are the banker and you're paying attention, but you're actually holding their hand more than we do. Yeah. I'm not checking to make sure you have loan repayments because you're an adult. Yeah. And so you should be adulting.
Yeah.
But we also don't have that taxation issue to worry about.
It's my understanding, like you make sure the policy is designed that it won't MEC.
Well, when we take a loan, it's the IRS code it's an actual loan. It's treated like a loan from a bank.
Okay.
So there is no income associated with that.
Okay.
But the policy, now in the US, if you pay too much premium, let's say your premium is $20,000 a year and you pay the insurance company $21,000, they will send you a letter that said, hey, you're going to MEC.
Yes.
And so we're not taking this $1,000 unless you don't reply back to us. But taking a loan does not change that. Paying premium could cause a MEC. Taking a loan and repaying a loan does not create any kind of a taxation.
Yeah, so that's where it's different. And then we also have something that we're exploring recently is something called an IRP. So it's an insured retirement plan. It goes against what Nelson taught about doing business with the banks, but we are exploring it as an option for when we have clients that are entering retirement. Basically, in a nutshell, I won't get too much into it.
To help avoid some of the taxation.
So avoid taxation because the bank can take your policy as collateral and they give you a loan every year for your annual income. And then they use the cash value to give you that loan. And then once you pass away, your loan's paid off and the remainder is paid out as a death benefit, just as it should. But we haven't done one yet because our client base our client base is quite young.
So when you take a loan in Canada, is your money still earning on an uninterrupted compound interest?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So that acts the exact same.
Yes.
So that part of the book is still very, very accurate. Yeah. You're earning uninterrupted compound interest. You're earning dividends because it's a mutual company.
Yeah.
And then there's only like one or two companies in Canada to work with versus a bazillion.
Yeah,
We don't have
so
quite a bazillion, but we probably have a dozen.
I'm actually not sure how many mutual companies there are in Canada, but we do most of our business with Equitable Life of Canada.
And not every mutual company has a paid up additions rider.
Yeah.
But Equitable does have a paid up additions rider.
Yeah, we love Equitable. They're advisor friendly, they're client friendly.
And they're IBC friendly.
And they're IBC friendly. They really are. And their policies just perform so well. We've compared and we usually come back. We come back to Equitable almost every time.
I think it's important that you understand IBC, you understand farming, you understand how to structure policies. And I think just for everybody listening, it's important to know that as well. Lacey does a lot of training with me. She sits in a lot of my meetings, and not because she needs to know how the US does it, but just to understand the farming side of it and how I am presenting to farmers, how we're solving problems, strategies, that sort of thing. Just so a lot of, I think, knowing that what I'm doing down here is being replicated up there is also important, especially if you guys like me. Then you know that I have also picked somebody that I trust to take care of you. It's not that I just randomly went and picked anybody in Canada. It was very important to me that my farmers are taken care of. And when I say my farmers, every farmer in the world is mine. And I just, as silly as it sounds, like, not mine that I have to do business with them, but it's my community. And I just want to make sure that they're not being screwed because it's very easy. People just take advantage of them.
Yeah. And I'll say, like, when I started working with Winnie, we were actually Winnie's clients first. So we heard your podcast on Working Cows podcast. We bought your book. Reed thought, why is this Chinese lady reaching out to me? Like, who is this lady? And I'm like, I think you're getting scammed. Like, I don't know. So he actually picked up the phone and called your office and talked to you. And you said, no, that's Winnie. She works with me. I pass all my Canadians off to her. So then it was like, oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
And we became her clients. And we were at a transition point where we were working as a hired family, but we knew we were going to be moving back to the home place soon. And so it was a time where I had an opportunity. Like, I said, oh, hey, like, I could actually, like, maybe pursue a career, because I'd been a stay-at-home mom. Like, our oldest son was 13 at the time. And I just kept asking Winnie in our meetings. I said, hey, like, is there opportunity to work with you? Like, I kind of like what you're doing. And she was like, what? and I just kept asking her, and I was persistent. I'm like, I really think, like, because in Texas, I was in the insurance world. I was in home and auto.
Oh, okay.
I said, I don't know. I really like this. And Reed, because so much money runs through the operation purchasing cattle every year, he's like, this makes complete sense for ranchers and farmers, but we're ranchers. He's like, the money that runs through, the money that we're purchasing cattle with, cash, could be ran through a policy. And so it was the first time in our married life where we felt like a financial philosophy resonated with us. And that's kind of where the journey started. I was persistent enough. Winnie grew to know me because we sat in so many client meetings with her. And she finally said, okay, get your license.
And that speaks volumes for Winnie. She's not just like, sure, any old Tom, Dick, and Harry can work with me.
No, I was the first person. So her and Amanda, Winnie's assistant, Amanda had been with her for like 6 or 7 years. Winnie never wanted to work with another advisor. I was the first one. And she said, I trusted you. She said, I didn't know what it was, but I just trusted you. And I went with my gut and I said, okay, and we'll get your license. And she didn't think I would. And so,
because most people don't. And
I'm like, challenge accepted. So I got my license. I passed my test on the first time, which is kind of unheard of, I guess. And she's like, you really are serious. And I'm like, I really am serious. So she actually made me start off in a role with her doing administration stuff. So I learned the backside of how the policies work. I sat in every single client meeting with her, taking notes. She made me take the notes. looking back, I'm like, she made me do a lot of stuff, but it was for my own good and for the client's own good, right? So it ended up just, I stayed in that role actually part-time until January of this year. But the stuff that I learned in that role, like,
there's a lot of the backside that needs to be known. Like, agents that don't do the backside of it, and a lot of my newer agents don't because I have Jess, but I had to do it. And it makes you understand how the underwriting process works, who's insurable, who's not insurable, what that looks like. Like, insurance companies don't like everybody.
No.
And so there's certain things that we know or we have to explain. Like, you and I were talking about an issue that you're having right now that is the most ridiculous thing ever. And you're going to have to explain to the insurance company how ridiculous it is because they're too ignorant to understand.
Yeah.
Because it's not a risk. It's not a health risk. And so, like, the amount of things that I have to relay, or even on the farming side. Like, I had a guy that they asked what he farmed.
Oh.
And that's a pretty odd question. We don't get that a lot. And so we wrote down hemp because he was a hemp farmer. Immediately came back denied.
Oh.
Because they're like, no, he's growing marijuana. Hemp is not marijuana. Like, you can at least make a phone call to me and be like, Mary Jo, this guy's growing hemp? Like, he's growing marijuana? No, it's not. And they just don't always, like, the underwriters don't always understand. So it is important to understand agriculture and to understand what your client's doing so you can explain to these city folks why there's an issue. You know, we had a client that wanted insurance on her husband because he was going elk hunting, and she wanted to make sure he wasn't killed, you know, that she had insurance if he was killed by a bear.
Oh.
And so for whatever reason that came out in the underwriting process, and our customer service manager person said, what? Killed by a bear? Like, that's a real thing? We're like, yeah. What do you mean you don't know that's a real thing? And so their lifestyle is so very, very different because they're in a big city. They don't have rural people doing that job. It's more of an in-person job. It's not necessarily remote. And so it is important that we know how to relay that information because they're going to ask, what are your clients doing? Like, even rodeo. We had somebody that they professionally rodeoed, and they were like, are they a steer wrestler? A steer wrestler? You're concerned about a steer wrestler?
Yeah.
Like,
should be concerned about
the bull rider.
Probably.
I was like, really?
Yeah.
I've known a lot of steer wrestlers in my day, and I don't know any of them that have gotten them been killed.
Right.
You know,
I know.
like, they're not jumping on the horn. I mean, I suppose they could miss the horns, but
I guess it could happen. But I mean,
so they just don't understand that world.
No, they don't. And we try really hard we have an underwriter who does most of our underwriting. And so it's really good to have his phone number. And just in January, or maybe at the end of December, we spent an hour on the phone with him because we had a ranching family that we're trying to get more policies for. And just us spending that hour on the phone with him gave him all of the information that he needed to understand why we were applying. Like, we set up every application for success. We do everything in our power to set it up for success. If we run into a roadblock, then we deal with that. But our hope is that we provide enough information and clarity in the application that they don't need to come back to us for tons of.
Right. Well, and a lot of times, I don't know what happens with you guys, but I do it so often that One America doesn't even really question it anymore. And we don't have one set underwriter per se, but we do have, like, I have enough business going through that they kind of just get to know you. But I was working with a newer company. I was working with a new company to me, and they would not allow me to have the child own a policy on mom. And if mom died, he was going to have to buy out the sister. So we just do that all the time.
Yeah,
it's a key man policy, right? Or it's a buy-sell type policy. And it's so normal for us. And they just had a fit about it. They're like, no, mom can own it. And I'm like, I had a full-on half-an-hour meeting with them, and they just could not understand. They're like, why don't they just create an estate plan? Well, why don't they? Why don't they? That's such a good idea. Why don't you go to every farmer and say, create an estate plan? Because nobody else is doing it.
Okay.
I mean, if they created an estate plan, then we wouldn't have to do this and that would be great. But there's not an estate plan.
No.
You need to understand that clientele. You need to understand their lifestyle. And it was so funny as we were talking, there was one person on that call that's like, yeah, farmers are, you're just not going to get them to do that. And these city folks just could not understand it. And I was so mad. I said, thanks, we'll never do business again. This person is not going to get rich off of $300,000 of death benefit.
Yeah.
Like, if we were talking 15 million, that'd be a different story. I could understand your concern. But $300,000, that's not even a down payment for what he needed.
No.
Like, that's not even a piece of equipment. That's not even taxes. Like, the fact that you're not even trying to understand, because a lot of these insurance companies watch too much Dateline and they think everybody is killing everybody, or mystery murder podcasts or whatever they're listening to. Like, their mindset is very different than ours.
Yes.
But I always say, if you took me to the city, I would be lost as well.
Yeah.
You were recently in New York. It is a different lifestyle that I don't want to criticize them, but I would want to learn if I were in either one of those situations.
Yeah, for sure. Like, when we were in New York City, I think it gave me a different perspective of, if you were born and raised in that setting, that's why you are a product of your environment, just as we are a product of the ranch environment. Yeah, we were talking last night, like, death comes on the farm, death becomes something that we have to deal with more so than someone in the city. And so whether it be fish, Sid's fish, or cats or dogs or whatever,
I always say we ate our pets because we'd have a bottle calf. And it would either get sold or end up on the table. Yeah. I mean, it was just a part of life. Like, things die. Yeah. Back in our day, you didn't euthanize a dog. Yeah. You watched Dad take it up to the pit with some dog food and didn't come back with it. Like, you knew what was happening.
Yeah, I remember.
It just was not a emotional experience, and you don't get as attached to things.
Yeah, when and you have to experience that. I remember when Reed's grandpa died in 2008, his cousin Kendall, Reed comes from a big family, but a rodeo family too. So his youngest cousin happens to be Kendall Pearson, breakaway roper. And when Grandpa died, she said, "So, Dad, are we just going to take him out back with Minnie?" And Minnie was his poodle who had passed away a few months before. And he's like, "No, it's a little different when people die. We don't just take them out back."
Oh, she was little
She was little at that time. Yeah, she was probably 6,
so
5 or 6. And we just take him out back. So I feel like, you do become a product of your environment. And that's where, like, with me having the ranching background, I know there have been some clients that were Winnies before I came along. And a dairy farmer from BC actually said, I love Winnie and I love her knowledge. He's like, but I also like talking to you because when I say, hey, I kept 15 replacement heifers, you know what I'm talking about, or I'm not going to be able to keep this many. And so it does, I think, make them feel more at home or feel more understood, because sometimes I feel like farmers and ranchers from the outside world can be seen as, well, that's not really a business, when it absolutely is a business. And it is.
And the world of farming and ranching is so misunderstood. The big wide world wants to tell you how to do your job, and they don't even know how to do it themselves. Like, they don't truly know how things are raised. Like, even, here's a good example. Scott chews Copenhagen. And so he is trying to decide if he should go to something else that would be better for him than Copenhagen. But it's just a nicotine replacement, right? And so we start reading the cans of these nicotine replacements, and I'm like, well, look at all these additives. Like, you can't tell me that's better for you than straight up nicotine, like the tobacco leaf. Yeah. Well, I've never grown tobacco. I don't know how tobacco is grown. I've never been on a tobacco farm. And so I go to the TikTok and I'm like looking up all these tobacco growers, because I want to genuinely learn how the tobacco is grown. I don't care what AI has to say. I don't care what anybody outside of the tobacco industry has to say. I want to know how tobacco is grown from a tobacco grower. And I haven't found out how much spray is on it and chemicals and that sort of thing. But I'm not going to sit here and be like, that's the worst thing ever. And you need to change how you grow tobacco.
Yeah.
Because everybody's growing it differently. Like everybody's saying, oh, all these farmers are desiccating their wheat. I didn't even know that was a thing until probably 10 years ago. I had no idea. Nobody that I knew growing up desiccated their wheat. And so to lump everybody in on the same, the farming industry has to have somebody in it that understands what they're going through, how they grow their food, how they live, the fact that family lives on the same farm. You're very close to one another. You're very intertwined to one another.
Yeah.
You know, you may or may not like one another, depends on the day. Like there are so many variables to understand, and that there is heritage there.
Yeah.
From 1910 to today.
Yeah.
That means something to us, even though we weren't alive then. Like it means something to me that my dad is fixing my great-grandparents' home, and it was a rock house. It's what they homesteaded with. Like that's still on our place. There's still sentimental value that got passed down. We know who died in that house. We know when they built the new house. Like that doesn't happen when you don't live in agriculture, because you're moving houses. Like it took me a long time to understand how people can move every couple years and not be in the same house that they were brought home from the hospital in.
Yeah.
Like I will never know another house. I will never know another home location. That will always be home.
Yeah. And I think for me too, like I didn't grow up on the place, and Reed didn't grow up there either. There's 3 sisters, 3 brothers, and the girls all left, and the boys have the ranch, and it's all split, and everybody's separate, but it's all right there together. Like we're within 5 miles of family. But for me, like living there, it is home to me, and it's worth protecting. And what Grandma Lizzie started, like in 1910, she was a widow. She had a little baby, and she homesteaded 10 acres. Like you went to the office of wherever they were handing out the homesteading. Uncle Brad has her certificate of her land, and she found her 10 acres the next year.
Do you know what they had to do to homestead that?
I don't know the exact process. We have a family book, and it's all in there.
My dad has been studying that. He talks about it. If you guys want to listen to that interview, Heidi Olson with Pathfinder Legacy. Oh my God, I'm such a good friend. Heidi interviewed my dad on their Tom Freilich, and he talks about the homesteading of what they had to do, because we have my great-grandparents as well. And a similar story, my great-grandfather was killed in a tornado. And so my great-grandmother had to keep the farm going. And she was buying land in the 30s when everybody else was selling, and she was selling seed. And they were using tractors. Little scuffle with the tractor situation, and she ended up going back to horses and plows. And but my dad has read a lot of books. In order to homestead our area, they had to remain on the land like a year or two before they could get their homesteading certificate. So dad had talked to one of the neighbors, I believe, and when they had homesteaded, they basically turned their wagon upside down, dug a hole, and lived in that for 2 years with their children. Like I cannot even imagine North Dakota winters. And, Dad did say in Heidi's podcast that a lot of these people wanted to just go back to Germany, but they didn't have the money to go back.
Yeah.
And so they were stuck here because it was so brutal. And Canada's not going to be any better. Yep. Like where you're at, you're in Ontario. Alberta. Okay. Yeah. So it's not any better in Alberta. It's equally as cold.
Oh, yeah.
And so very, very brutal conditions.
Winters. And I'll look into what that process was, but I know she started with 10 acres and the next year she got another 10 acres. And there was a bachelor neighbor who was similar age to her. And he stopped in one day like, oh, there's a new neighbor or whatever. And they started to see each other and they built the family, and that's where the Pearson family started.
I think there's a lot of women in agriculture. Like, people say, oh, there's not as many women in agriculture, and that's getting to be more and more. And I think there probably was a fair amount of women throughout the years in agriculture. You just didn't hear about them.
Yeah, you didn't
see them. They just put their head down. They went to work, but people died, and they had to keep it going or not keep it going. You know, and they had kids old enough to help.
Yeah, for sure. And so I always say, like, a legacy like ours is worth protecting. Like, what she built, what has been expanded and built on. And it's like, it's worth protecting. And like, you know, we're closely tied to Uncle Brad and Auntie Charlotte, and they're 2 girls. They have 2 girls, but they're not on the farm. They're one is a pilot and one works in Calgary. And so now we're working with them, like, how can we protect and preserve what everybody has built?
Because I think you have to live it to understand it.
You have to live it, because if we are not doing something to protect it and preserve it and make it sustainable for the next generations to keep it, guess what? Corporation's going to buy it. It's going to be sold, because one day it's going to come down to, well, nobody can afford to buy it except the big corporation. And so I always say, how many times are we going to pay the bank for the same piece of land? Let's look at something different. Yeah. Like the book. Let's look and see, like, is this going to work for you?
The reason, I'm a firm believer, the reason we're losing farms is due to the lack of estate planning.
Absolutely.
And in that estate plan, there's never life insurance, and we're not passing on those discounted dollars. And so we're actually making it harder for ourselves to sustain that. It's not all just market issues, because the market will fluctuate. It's gone up and down forever. It's always going to go up and down. There's one thing that we can have control of. And it was interesting when I was visiting with Doug. I said, what is sell by marketing? Like, why sell by marketing? And it took us a long time in our interview to get
if you know Doug.
But he said, it's the one thing that I can control. I can control what I pay for an animal. I can't control what I sell an animal for, right? But I can control what I pay for that animal. And so if we have very little control anyway, almost everything is out of our control. We can control what we're going to leave to the next generation. In a life insurance policy, that premium is guaranteed. The cash value is guaranteed. The death benefit is guaranteed in whole life, not in universal life. In whole life, if we can take 1 or 2 things that we can control that would make a huge difference to save a livelihood, why wouldn't we do that?
Preach it. I know. I know.
Yeah, it's so crazy that we are kind of our own worst enemy in some extent.
Yeah. And like my parents come up to visit quite often. And like I said, he was a first responder for 28 years. That's what he built his career on. He was also a farrier. And we had horses and did the whole rodeo thing. But when he comes to visit us, he often says, there is no better life than the way you're raising these kids on this ranch and with this family all surrounded. And people at home will say, man, don't you wish they'd move back here? And he said, nope. And they're shocked. They're like, oh, like, who wouldn't want their
grandkids close?
Yeah, right. And he said, he tells the people at home, because we're near Houston, so like very populated. He says, if you could see the lifestyle they live, you would understand why I don't want them down here. And it's because of the ranch.
You're seeing that, though. People are starting to go out into the wide opens.
Yes.
And that's why we're seeing the 40 acres, the 100 acres, the homesteaders, because they're coming from town. And COVID was a huge push.
Yes.
We're going to get out of town because it's where we don't have to wear a mask. And they experience the solitude. And we've had many guests over the years, and it's funny that they'll come and they're like, oh my God, I had such a good night's sleep. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, there was no light outside. There was no noise. There were no sirens. Like, you can sit out here and hear the crickets. Like, it is, I don't want 40 acres. Like, that's not enough for me. That's not enough for me either. I don't want to hear barking dogs. I don't want to hear people talking. I want to be alone. And when you that's why people think they like camping, But we used to camp when we lived in town. We would go camping and we're like, oh, this is so great, you know? And I heard somebody say, so people that live in houses basically put themselves in a trailer park every weekend. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so accurate. But I got to the point where I was like, I am tired of hearing the neighbors camping. I'm tired of all these barking dogs. I'm tired of people partying all night. Like, forget it. We have complete solitude. And so as much as we want to be upset that those people want to move out in the country, we also need to understand why they want to move out.
Yeah.
And they just want a piece of what we have. And if somebody is selling it, there's nothing we can do about it because it's also a privilege to be able to own that land.
Yeah.
Or I shouldn't say a privilege. I hate that word, actually. It is an opportunity, a blessing to be able to own the land and do what we want with it and not have government regulations.
Yeah. And I will say, like Sid, our daughter, like she has this amazing little black horse. It was supposed to be mine, but I call her the granny horse. And so we eventually passed her on through the kids. But Sid will get on her horse and we call Auntie Charlotte. She's headed your way. And she rides over and visits her great auntie, who is also a horse lover. But like, I always say to people, like, what is it that you want to protect? Because I want to protect that. She can get on her horse, ride over, hang out with her great auntie. Like, where else can you get that? We live in an area because of what Grandma Lizzie started and Uncle Brad, Bruce, Randy, like all that they've carried on. We get to live that life as well. And so I always say to clients, like, what is it that you want to protect? What is it that you want to see your grandkids or your kids or your great grandkids doing? Let's help protect that.
And what are the stories they're gonna tell?
What's your story? This is my story.
Yeah.
What's your story? Because every farm or ranch has a story and it's worth preserving.
Let's talk about Canadian agriculture for a minute. What are you guys seeing? What's going on with these cattle regulations?
Oh, yeah, that is a big...
Is that Alberta?
Yeah, well, it's all of Canada.
Oh, okay.
So,
I thought it was just one province. I thought your provinces kind of had different rules, but...
Yeah, so the CFIA, which is the Canadian Food, and it's a regulation for the agriculture, Canadian Food Inspection Agency.
Okay.
So they want to implement regulations where we have to document and track the movement of our cattle every time we move them. It's ridiculous.
So what happens if I'm doing regenerative agriculture up there and rotational grazing and moving my cows every day?
Who are they sending to record this movement?
Yeah.
And where we live, we have...
So I can't record it? They need to record it?
So I believe they're wanting a veterinarian to record it. But, we have a shortage of veterinarians.
Yeah.
And then, so when we ship our cattle at the 1st of June, they go from our home place to the summer pasture, which is a community pasture. Well, who's going to be there to record the import of them to that pasture? Because, I mean, we're talking like hundreds of thousands of acres where these cattle go. Who's going to do that?
Right.
And first of all, there's no place to stay. So if you're sending somebody who's hired, well, they're going to have to pitch a tent because there's no place to stay. It's literally in the middle of nowhere to record, and everybody's staggered entrance. So they're going to have to be there for 2 weeks.
And
it doesn't make sense.
And then you're going to have to count them coming off the trailer.
You're going to have to
and if you miscount, we can't put them back on the trailers.
No, and it all comes down to control. And that is what we need to fight, because
I've heard there's enough control up there. Like, we're getting to the point where there's so much control that we're going to lose farms due to that sort of a thing.
Yeah, it's getting harder and harder. And I know, like, I don't know a whole lot about that. That's kind of in a nutshell what I know about it. But I know that they implemented something like this in Europe, and it was detrimental. One,
But we don't always learn from other people's mistakes.
No, we don't learn from other people's mistakes. It's just going to be impossible to regulate. It's a disaster. It gives too much control to the government and not enough control to the producers.
And it does not matter. Does it matter, Or do you know if it matters if we have a bank loan on those cattle or if they're paid off?
I don't know that. And one,
I would think if I had a bank loan, I'd probably have to report for the loan, or they're going to somehow tie that together where if we can finance them outside of a banking system, then we don't have to report.
Yeah, it very well could be. And it just gets ridiculous. Like, we calve our cows on our home place there, and then we split the pairs off. So you're telling me every time I go split a pair off across the road, you want me to report it? That's not happening. People aren't going to comply. Like, it's ridiculous.
Is the tracking so they know where all the cattle are and how many there are? What do you think the control is? Why do you think they're trying to control it?
I don't know that answer.
Okay.
Like, I don't know why they want that control. I don't know if I always try to look at things and say, okay, like, is there a middle of the road here? Is there some sort of justification to what they're doing and why they're doing it?
Yeah.
Or are they telling us not the whole story and then it gets worse as it goes on? So I don't really know. I don't agree with being controlled, every move that you have being controlled. I don't like that.
There's just so many things that happen in agriculture that you just don't have time to control things. Like, you don't have time. Those cattle can't sit on a trailer all day.
No.
And so we just don't have time to be able to be implementing some of these things. Or in order to do it, like, we looked at collars the other day, the GPS collars, because I have a new client that has them on her goats, and she's great. She's using these goats to clean up tree areas. And I was like, oh, that's such a good idea. And the collars are like, if you buy them in bulk, I think they were $235 a collar.
That's crazy.
And then there's like I think it's $35 a month to track that collar a month.
Yeah.
Think if you had 1,000 of those on cows and now you're supposed to track it, So I'm just barely familiar with it in the States, but it's like, oh, I'll give you some money if you do this and you put these collars on these cows, and then we can check the methane and we can check their grazing and we can check all this stuff. Well, now you also know how many cows I have.
Yep.
And so no, thank you.
No, thanks.
I'm going to have however many cows I want to have, and you don't need to know that.
I'll saddle up my horse and go count my cows.
Right.
And where our cows summer pasture, you know what? The guy who wants to implement the tracking, he can saddle up and we'll give him a real good horse. Not really. We'll give him the worst one. And he can go count the cows. Like, seriously, you can go find them on 200,000 acres. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, I know when Reed was welding,
so what you're saying is the government employee that comes out to count your cows may or may not get the broke horse.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's hope we've got, hopefully the good one's available.
Hopefully. But I tell you which one's the good one.
So right now, cattle prices in the U.S. are great. Commodity prices, not so good. I've kind of heard the same thing is happening in Canada. We've got great cattle prices right now, not so good.
Yeah, cattle prices are at an all-time high where Reed's go-to is like, everything's for sale. Because of prices. And the commodities, they're softer, but our dollar is very weak right now. Mm-hmm. So I think yesterday was like 74 cents.
Oh, wow.
But also our commodities are priced in US dollars, which helps us. But if we're having to buy inputs in US dollars or from the US, then that can make our operating costs go up. So when our dollar is weaker, it really does impact us, because like, even every time I cross the line, it's like something better be 40% off for me to justify purchasing it here versus at home, because I'm paying 40% more for it. Mm-hmm. It just
has the tariffs. Have you guys noticed that the tariffs in agriculture have affected up there, or are they affecting other things?
They're definitely affecting other things for sure. Our prime minister, that's why he's doing some dealings with China, because China took the tariffs off of canola.
Okay.
It's canola oil, canola seed. Anyways, he reduced some tariffs, but in turn, he agreed that we would import X number of electric vehicles from China too. So there's a lot.
So you're importing a lot of electric vehicles. How's your grid?
Right? It's a lot of shady business deals going on.
Well, we quit buying the electric vehicles, so you can have them.
No, we don't want them. And I always say, like, because we live right near the river, I'm like, they can bring their electric vehicle and see if they can make it to town from our place, because the river hill will really probably drain there.
The thing with electric vehicles is they don't do well in the cold, and they don't last long. And so we know people that have them, or we know dealerships. I know owners of dealerships that have had them. And just to get 90 miles from here to their home, you know, they've had to plug in twice. They couldn't use heat, and it's winter because the heat is draining the battery. And so are they good in some places? Absolutely. You go ahead and you do you.
Yeah.
I don't care either way. I have clients with electric vehicles and they love them because the gas mileage is so great.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic. They're saving a ton of money on gas. And so if you're in an area where you can do that, whatever, but it's not to mandate them is crazy when you're living rural. Like, it's another prime example of perhaps you should leave the city.
Yeah. Yeah.
And see, like, even to come here, you flew in, I'm like, don't bother with a rental car because there probably aren't any. We just don't have the need for them. And so I'll just give you ours to borrow because you're not gonna need one. Or you're not gonna get one. The last person I had that tried to get one is like, they were all out and they weren't gonna be, I couldn't even get a private one. What is that?
Oh, Turo.
Yeah, I couldn't even get a Turo car till Thursday and it was Monday.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, yeah, just take ours.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, I always say, like, I feel super blessed to be able to call two countries home, and two of what I think are the best countries in the world. Canada has changed since I moved there, but I still call it home. That's where our home base is. And yeah, I do truly think, like, just the fact that we're able to practice infinite banking and have the properly structured policies in the US and Canada, that's huge. Because we have people from Australia contact. It's like, sorry, like, I really
South
wish you could do that, but you fortunately can't. And so I feel so excited and so fortunate to be able to represent Canada in, the farming without the bank and infinite banking.
And hopefully soon in both countries.
Hopefully soon, yeah. So I technically have my license, but I just have to jump through a couple more. Yeah, in the US, I do technically have my license, but I have to jump through a couple more legalities, and then I will be able to serve people in the US as well. So that's super exciting to be able to zip home and do some work and help people there, or, come down here or whatever. So yeah, I just think, like,
and it's a benefit for all of us. Because I have a lot of people call me about, can I do this in Canada? Who do I talk to in Canada? And so it's nice if I have a Canadian question too, to just be like, hey, Lacey is able to answer that question, or Winnie is able to answer that question.
Yeah. It's super great too, I think, that Winnie and I work together, because she was supposed to be here too with us this week. Something came up and she was needed to be with her family. But she knows, she's like, yep, you fully have the torch. So, she knows I'm going to go and represent and do it well. And same with me in 2023.
It's kind of like John and I. Yeah. Right? Like, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, John's going to be able to serve everybody, and he's going to take care of them, and he's honest, and he's going to do what's right. And you have to have that in this industry, because we always tell everybody else, well, you better be prepared for when you die. Well, we also need to be prepared for when we die, because we have a lot of clients to take care of.
Yeah.
And I take that very seriously. Like, I just lost my marketing guy. He passed away, and it has been a big eye-opener on the business side. Like, we talk about the family side all the time, but the business side has been a huge eye-opener for me, that, oh my gosh, we have to get this and we have to get that and we have to do this, and we didn't know what was going on there. Like, we kind of thought we had everything in order because he had been sick and we knew something was going to happen eventually, but it was more sudden. And we're like, oh my gosh, we were not as ready as we thought we were going to be. I've been talking more just to my team about what happens if I'm dead. Like, where do you go? What does that look like? Who takes over? What happens with the book?
Yeah.
Like, there are so many things we also have to be concerned of. So it's nice to be able to nice for Lacy or for Winnie to have you. It's nice to have John.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
hopefully everybody else's world is not disrupted by that loss.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, well, sure.
This is my new thing. Since I lost him, I was like, we didn't have a period of mourning and just be able to tell stories. It took us about 2 weeks before we could start telling stories about him and just reflect back on, what he did for us and all this stuff. And I'm like, when I die, I don't care how many people are at my funeral, but man, I hope that they're not so busy scrambling that they can at least tell some stories about me.
Yeah.
Even if they're like, finally, she's gone. I mean, I don't care what it is, but it was like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? What are we going to do? And it really was like, you don't get that impact for a week or for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It made me think about stuff.
Yeah, it does make you think. Like recently, Winnie and I had a death claim that we had to process. And it was a client who was an orphan client. So meaning, and he was very elderly. His advisor probably retired is what happened. But
so orphaned meaning
he didn't
what an
have
orphan policy is somebody else wrote the policy. They got out of the business or they retired. And so now the insurance company looks for a place to put him. So you grabbed him.
Yeah. So we ended up being his advisor and he passed away. And so we were processing his death claim with his wife. And she happened to actually live only minutes from Winnie. So Winnie went and sat with her, visited with her, helped her with paperwork, and then went back and delivered the death claim. And even though I'm the one that had the most relationship with him and he was quite funny, but it's like we were able to show up for her in a time where she was grieving and we were able to bring her some relief.
Yeah. And I'm sure Winnie gave her the biggest multiple hugs.
Yes.
Winnie hugs. If the Canadians listening to this, if you're working with them and you've not gotten a Winnie hug,
if you meet
it isn't like any other hug you will ever receive in your life.
If you meet her in person, you will get a Winnie hug. I'll probably give you a firm handshake until I really get to know you. But just being able to show up for people. I have 2 clients. One lost her husband when they were in their 30s. They had life insurance. She was able to pay off some land, carry on, and she's still farming. And now it's to the point where their kids are old enough and ready to come in and take over. So because of that death benefit, she was able to carry on financially.
Without it, she would have been selling.
Without it, she would have been selling. Another client who also lost her husband not very long after they were married. They were still in their mid-20s and they didn't have life insurance because, she said, we were invincible and what do we need that for? And we just bought a house and we were starting our careers. And she said, I'll never be caught in a position of not being prepared again. And so we can talk about preserving the farm and doing all these things and taking back control and having liquid access to our money and things like that. But what's also important is that estate planning or succession planning, because accidents happen. People pass away unexpectedly or get sick. In 2023, I was diagnosed with colon cancer out of the blue. I was 40 years old. When he was able to, carry on, meet with our clients, I was still able to earn an income and work whenever I could. And she picked up a lot of pieces on the days when I couldn't show up. And
cancer is such a common thing now that you just can't rule that out. Like saying I'm going to die of a heart attack or what have you, like even heart attacks. It's amazing how many people I'm seeing between 40 and 50 that are having heart attacks. Oh, I'm lucky I didn't, the Widowmaker was blocked and I just so happened to go in and catch that. And so it's just, you just don't know when that is going to be important. Yeah. And it's very life-changing. All right. Well, we've been here an hour.
Oh. There's so much to talk about. I feel like I could sit for another hour, but
yeah. The biggest thing I think I would like people to understand is just kind of getting to know you, understanding that if you are Canadian, there is a Canadian version of the book.
Yep.
You can go to ranchyourway.com and you can get the Farming Without the Bank book, the Canadian version that comes directly shipped from your office.
Yeah, it does. And it now comes with the audio version too.
Oh,
so you're gonna
okay.
get
Awesome.
both. Yeah.
Awesome. So you'll get the audio book and the regular book.
Yeah.
It's not hardcover.
Yeah, paperback.
The paperback. There you go.
Yeah.
And so ranchyourway.com, if they have questions, can they call or do you prefer them to get the book first?
We do prefer purchasing the book first. On our website, there's a video series that they can enroll in and get that 4-part series.
Oh, nice.
And then we also have a line. You can reach out and leave us a voicemail, and then we'll call you right back or text us.
Mhm.
There's always somebody in the office there to respond to you, even if it's not Winnie or I. There's always somebody there to acknowledge your phone call or your message, and then we'll get back to you.
And so once they read the book, they can set up an appointment. The link is in the book.
Yep.
Where they can set the appointment up. Or will you talk to them if they've got my book and not your book?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So even if you have the US copy, they can just email
Absolutely.
you. Who should they email to get the calendar link?
So if
for a
you
meeting?
if you have Mary Jo's book and you've read that, you can email WeCare, so WECARE at ranchyourway.com.
Okay.
And our assistant Amanda will help you with getting set up to meet with us.
Okay. Yeah. So if you've got, because I know a lot of you have got my book, the only thing in Farming Without the Bank in Canada that's changed is the back portion of the book. The numbers changed because it's done a little differently in Canada. So set up your appointment with Winnie or Lacey and get started. I can't help you because I'm not licensed in Canada and I don't ever plan to get licensed in Canada at this point. Because I don't want to take more tests.
Yeah.
So you guys know the drill. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having
appreciate
me.
it.
Yes, love it.
Okay, you guys, if you have comments, questions, concerns, email me. Set up your appointment with us. If you're in the US, John or I, we're happy to help. And let us know if there's anything we can do for you. You have a fantastic rest of your day.
Bye.